years ago, I had a friend who told me to play Fear and Hunger. And he said it was perfect for me, and I don't know what I was doing. I was busy doing other stuff, or I know I looked at the Steam page, and it seemed completely unappealing to me in every single way. And I recently, just on a whim, about 50 hours of gameplay ago, on a whim, decided to just give it a go one night. I realized the game was like $6, and you know, I enjoy challenging video games, and so I picked it up and I started Fear and Hunger, and immediately it became one of my favorite games that I have ever played, which is super weird because I did not care for the aesthetic. It's definitely grown on me, but I'm not somebody who has any affection for JRPGs, and there is a lot of visual similarity to traditional JRPGs when you look at the Steam page on Fear and Hunger, and so it just didn't seem like an appealing thing to me in any real way. And I am so glad that I actually played it and that I actually fell in love with this game, because it has been almost my singular obsession. I'm gonna drink a coffee. Since I began playing it, I mean, it has become such a joy and a pleasure, which is weird because it's really a really intense game, and so I wanted to rant about it. I wanted to make a video really quick about it, because I realized that maybe somebody could have talked me into giving it a go sooner if they had known how to approach the subject, how to bring it up. And so that's my goal, is I know that there's dudes out there who would love Fear and Hunger and are probably never going to play it, and maybe you are in love with Fear and Hunger and you got a friend who you really want to have them enjoy the game, just like I did. I remember that originally my friend, Greg is his name, Greg asked me, Greg sent me a link to a video and was like, you should check this out. And I remember thinking, I have this aversion to watching summary videos, because I'm worried about spoilers in games all the time. I find so much enjoyment in the act of discovery with a game. I was never somebody to necessarily use a guide, and if I did for like a Final Fantasy or something when I was a kid, it would be like a page for page thing, and it wouldn't be me looking ahead and getting things spoiled. And I think we live in this odd time where you end up getting really like detailed summary things when you're just looking into a game, and that part of that is YouTube's fault, because you need something to look at. I mean, obviously right now I have things playing. I'm going to be really careful, and I'm not going to show spoilers, because I think that Fear and Hunger does some very, very special stuff, and so I want to talk about it a little bit more. I know I've basically taken 3 minutes to say I want to talk about it, but my goal, again, is to win more people over like me to Fear and Hunger, people in our community who have not given it a chance, or people who run into us here on YouTube. So I think where I want to start talking about Fear and Hunger is the idea of the joy of playing a game that gatekeeps itself. We have like a bunch of new words, right? We talk about filtering. We talk about how a boss in a Souls game filters somebody, and we generally, if we use that word, it's from kind of that strong standpoint, right? Like, I'm good at games. Oh, you got filtered by that guy. But I wanna point out how incredible of a thing that is for a developer to do when they make a game. Generally, when you make a game, a lot of the time you're thinking, hey, will this sell? Will this be something that will appeal to enough people that I will be able to justify the time that I spent on this game by their purchases? And then you have this other school of thought where you are appealing to a very specific group of players. And Fear and Hunger does that, and the beautiful thing that does when it comes to world development, game creation, stuff like that, is that it allows you to actually have a vision for yourself as the developer, right? Like, you are making a game that you would enjoy, and you are gatekeeping your game by creating maybe something that filters out players, maybe an early boss that in a Souls game that boots a whole bunch of people out. They just can't handle it. It's too hard. There's a skill check, and a whole slew of players never get access beyond that point. And I know that with Souls games, we've adjusted to that. And I think with Fear and Hunger, for the first time since I learned how to play video games, which are what Souls games do, right? All Souls style games aren't. They're games that you only get to progress if you learn how to play a game. So once I learned how to learn, I stopped having that experience. I stopped having that gate that wouldn't let me pass unless I worked really hard at it. Fear and Hunger does that constantly. And it's such an interesting design decision, because we live in this age where you are supposed to leave a candy trail of rewards for players, right? Like a little Hansel and Gretel sort of trail that people follow to the prize. And Fear and Hunger doesn't do that. It actually leaves a trail of blood. And that trail of blood intrigues you as a player, right? Like, instead of looking at it like, hey, step 1, cool, that felt good. Step 2, hey, that felt good. Fear and Hunger, when you succeed at something, it's such a minor thing you've succeeded at. Okay, you survived your first encounter, and you want to high five yourself for that, and you're like, well, it's just my first encounter. Okay, I just took that was hard. And then you have your second encounter, and you're like, what the hell is this game? It's so hard. And you look at the group of players who have played before you, like me, and we love it. And you say, what is at the end of this? What is the thing that is causing you as a player to be excited about the progression, about getting further in this game? Is it a sense of accomplishment? Is it some sort of narrative reward? Is it a cool looking thing? Is it that you get to be part of an exclusive club of gamers who are better than everybody else? And the answer to all of those questions is yes. And it is such an interesting thing, because to revisit the concept of filtering players, not every game is for everyone. And Fear and Hunger is not for everyone. And it does this in such incredible ways. It's not just in its difficulty, it's in its subject matter and the way it displays it as well. It is an incredible thing for Fear and Hunger to take subject matter that is extremely uncomfortable for a player to deal with. And there's a couple that are like very uncomfortable. I'll try to talk about it without spoiling things. But there's a couple scenes that are really, really, really intense, that are off-putting, that will make players close the game, like actually close the game, whether it's because of trauma that they have experienced in their personal life, or just because they have a sensitivity to those things, or because they don't want that in a video game. And Fear and Hunger puts those things there, and then it puts more, and then it puts more, and it's not for no purpose. You feel it as a player when you're playing it. It is filtering. And when you get past the filter, you realize that this game is for a very specific group of people. And there's no shame if it's not for somebody. There's zero shame. I'm one of these gamers. Coffee. Before it gets cold. I'm one of these gamers who I'm a get good self gamer. I don't think everybody has to get good. I think I have to get good because I enjoy that in games. I've identified that if a game is not challenging, not just by difficulty, but in any mode of engagement, whether it's a narrative, understanding a narrative, like I like things that approach a certain level of skill and care, and when I engage with a game, I want to get good. I want to engage with the mechanics of the game. I don't want a power fantasy. I want a struggle fantasy, because that's where I get my enjoyment. Some people like power fantasies. You get to the end of your day, and you just need to blow 600 dudes up, right? And I don't need that. At the end of a hard day of work, out in the sun, in the fields, doing whatever, out on a boat. I don't know where you live, in the middle of the ocean. I don't know. I want to come home, and I've always wanted more stress, because it's not stress, because it's satisfaction. It's the reward that I desire. It's not getting there. It's the actual like accomplishment. And so I am a personal get good gamer, but I'm not the sort of person who thinks everybody needs to be that way. It's okay if you're not. And if you're not, Fear and Hunger is not for you. Just hands down, not for you at all. But if you're somebody who enjoys that as the process, that is the type of game you enjoy, Fear and Hunger does have this massive appeal to you. And I think the challenge with it, though, is talking about this game without spoiling it is supremely difficult, because everything that is attractive about it is stuff you would not expect. Even back to, I mean, I don't even want to leave the concept of filtering yet. The idea that certain subject matters are extremely dicey. Things involving children, for example. That is, like, I say children, and immediately, like, red flags go off. Like, what does he mean children? What is he talking about? What happens to children in that game? And the answer is horrible things. And it will make you as a player feel horrible. And it will make you as a player not want to do certain things. But do I have the option to do certain things? I don't know. I'm afraid. I'm uncomfortable with that as a player. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this other thing. But the subject matter is there, and it has this emotional anchor, and this almost bravery that comes when writing those things into a game, because it's really clear that the developer did not write things in to be edgy, but to manipulate me emotionally as a player, to make me uncomfortable, to disarm me. And that is a thing that most games have lost the ability to do. Unless you're new to Souls games and to extremely challenging anything really, XCOMs and that sort of strategy game where the difficulty is just pumped real high. Rogue, the original Rogue is a nightmare. If you are not accustomed to those things, maybe you could still get this experience with other difficult games. But gaming has changed. The landscape of gaming has changed so drastically over the course of over the course of the past 20 years, that we have, as gamers, gotten better at games and gotten better at responding to games and to challenges and to difficulty, and we have our badges of honor, and we've beaten Dark Souls level 1 and like soul level challenges, and we watch people do it, and we know it's possible. And so most of us have just lost the ability to have that feeling again. And Fear and Hunger gave me that feeling for the first time in a long time. Like, in a really long time. And so you have that aspect where, like, when we're talking about filtering, but that's not the only thing that's great about Fear and Hunger. And I think that this is another thing that is massively appealing to me and also easily spoilable. Fear and Hunger does some amazing narrative things, where it leaves the level of engagement up to the player, and they're putting puzzle pieces together, right? You can play through the game, get a core narrative, have a great time. You can feel like you've accomplished something, and that's cool. But generally, if you're the type of person who doesn't get filtered by challenges, and if you're the type of person who pushes through, you get these engaging little tidbits of information that are really clear that they are just the beginning of a deep root. And then as you dig in, you realize the roots are connected. And this is such a hard thing, because I feel bad even giving examples. There are details in enemy character designs that at first glance maybe are vulgar, and maybe are for shock value, and then you realize there is actually a developed narrative reason why enemies' bodies are the way they are, and why, as you progress through the game, there's similarities between enemies, and that but changes in levels of how grotesque they are. You realize that there are world environment things that you don't even click on that very similar to things in I'll reference Bloodborne every once in a while as I'm playing, because Bloodborne does a fantastic job of micro detailing. Fear and Hunger micro details, and maybe I can give an example from Bloodborne. I can give an example from Bloodborne, probably easier than Fear and Hunger, so that I don't spoil stuff for you as a player. But micro detailing is this amazing narrative technique where you don't require the player to notice something, right? It's not stuck in their face, but it's something that you purposefully designed. A good example with Bloodborne would be that when you go to the vampires in Bloodborne, and the queen smells the moon on you. She smells the final boss of the game, knowing that creature's touch is on you. You realize that there is this narrative line that means she knows about the existence of that creature, right? Of that god. And then you realize there's a connected thing where you realize your player drops a note at the beginning of the game that you can get later that sends you to her. And so there is this narrative implication that your character was going to people who knew about this particular creature for a reason. And then you can start making implications from that. There is a connective narrative string that goes between all of these things that is not pointed out to you. And so when we're talking about writing, that's there. But it's not just there, it's also in environments. There's micro-detailing in environments. An example of micro-detailing from Bloodborne would be that you see the amygdalas. You see amygdala statues in certain areas that give you connection. There'll be like 6 statues of one thing, and then 1 statue over here of something completely different. And the game doesn't go, hey, look at this, it's just in the row. And you look and you're like, why is that one this way? And there's a story connected to that particular environmental change. It's people talk about it like it's world building, but we see it in Bethesda games so vaguely and a shadow of what the potential actually is. You see somebody, in a bathroom with a whole bunch of empty beer bottles, and you go, oh, they were stuck in here, or they drank themselves to death, or something like that, right? There's a story there, but that's such a vague thing. Micro detailing is that times 100. When you look in certain areas in Fear and Hunger, you will see small details that are very purposeful. You'll see something on a wall, or you'll see something in a container, a creature in a container, and you look at its face and you go, oh, I think I recognize that, and you realize that that's something else, but it wasn't the point and it wasn't shown to you. The level of micro-detailing in this game is amazing. And so, and again, trying to avoid spoilers, because as you play through, you are given all of this stuff at one time, and it is 100% mentally overwhelming. You're not going to get it. You only realize this stuff when you are in the shower later, thinking about how much you enjoyed a game, and it impacts you, and you see the connection. You see the narrative interaction between the world and characters and things you're told, and then a lot of stuff is just hidden, which is always one of my favorite things ever in any video game. Again, I'll use. I know I keep saying Souls games, but there is a design philosophy that has been popularized by FromSoft that has impacted the industry in such a major way. And other people have done it, but FromSoft has done it so successfully. The idea that you, like somebody developing a game, will spend an insane amount of time developing an area, making bosses, making balanced or making purposeful encounters, And then we'll hide it. Just flat out hide it. And not tell you how to get it unless you're paying attention. If you and that is my favorite thing in any game ever. Because I think the reason I enjoy this idea so much as a gamer is that it provides a longer and a more valuable first playthrough. It allows you to continue to experience your first playthrough beyond just getting to the credits. When I play through a game and I get to the end and I high-five myself for it, I'm feeling good about it, and but then that's gone. That moment's gone. And I can go to another game, but what if I really enjoyed that game? Man, what if I loved that game? Well, if it's a FromSoft game, generally there's a lot more, and it's not just small things to do, right? It's not just, hey, go read this item. It's oh, I missed 8 bosses in this whole area, and Dark Souls 3 has this notorious secret wall that you go through the secret wall, and it takes you back in time, and you fight a boss there, and then you get an item, and then you go to another place, and there's another secret that it doesn't, like, you can figure out how to get if you're paying attention, but if you're not paying attention to environmental details and how a statue or a stone, how a statue is sitting, you're never going to notice that you can sit like that too because of an emote you got like 6 hours earlier, right? And so the micro detailing is the door that allows you into entire areas where you have some of the greatest encounters in any game ever, and especially in those particular games. And so the idea of closed exploration, right? Like where, again, not everybody is going to see this thing, is so attractive to me as a player. A great example of that versus another design style, right? Lies of P. Lies of P was fun. I enjoyed Lies of P. Is it a FromSoft game to me? It's not. Why? Because Lies of P is insanely linear. I think there's one optional area in Lies of P. I'm pretty sure there's one, maybe 2, but there's one, and it only adds maybe 15 minutes of gameplay. I don't even think there's a boss. There's a mini boss at the end of it, I think. But everybody's experience is the same. You don't have this individual experience that mirrors what we had like as kids, maybe, where we're talking on the playground and there's rumors of secret bosses in Nintendo games and stuff like that. And back then, most of it wasn't true, but in modern games, it can be. It can be like, oh, you beat that game. Did you? I want to be careful the way I ask this. Did you see? Is there anything you know about an egg? An egg? An egg? Do you know anything about that? And the person goes, no. And you're like, oh, I have to tell you something. You get that experience. You get to have this first experience again and again and again when games are like this. And so Lies of P wasn't. And that was, where the game is beautiful and the combat was fun. It did not compare to me to a FromSoft game because I value a particular thing. I'm not saying people can't enjoy that more than a FromSoft game, but for me, I love discovery and exploration. And so Fear and Hunger executes this so incredibly well, not just by hiding things behind secret walls or requiring keys, but sometimes there is something that you literally can't get. You just can't. You can't go there. Sorry. No, you didn't get the right items. Oh, that character's dead. Sorry, you needed that character. Yeah, the character permanently died. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, they're gone forever. Oh, you know what? You need 4 of this particular item to open this door. Guess what? You only got 2. Oh, the other 2? No, they don't exist in the game. Sorry about that. They don't exist in your game. Tough luck. Now you know this door is here, so next time you start over, maybe you can plan for it and you can get in this door. But this run, sorry, we're going to gate that. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to do it again. And so it does this with entire areas, entire bosses, entire endings, cool items that will strengthen your character, and but it also does it with information. And I think that is something that I really, really enjoy as somebody who really digs into, I think, narratively, one of the most important things to me in a game, right, is narrative consistency. And this is something that it's funny because when we talk about other narratively rich games, people always try to they always act like games are up for interpretation, right? And I don't really fall for that very often. Every once in a while, there's something where somebody's done it on purpose. But when you get into games that are like actually have narratives that are not explained to you, but you're given the shadow of that narrative, you are supposed to. There's a couple terms that are used within types of study. Eisegesis, exegesis. The idea is pulling information from an information source or taking thoughts that you have and trying to jam them into an information source. And a lot of games, you can actually more eisegete the information from and then put it together. And I think a lot of lazy thinkers, and I don't mind saying it that way, a lot of lazy thinkers will take their concepts and jam it into a game and try to make their thoughts work, rather than sitting there being like, well, is the game explaining this to me? Where's all the information? What's the information? How does this consistently fit together? And so that is another thing that I adore about this game is narrative consistency is amazing. Like you find a piece of information, awesome, sweet, file it away forever. Think about that forever. It applies to all the other pieces of information you get. And then here's the kicker: you can't get it all in a playthrough. You can't have all the conversations. Sometimes, to have a conversation with an enemy, you're going to die. But hey, you know what? If you want some information, if you're curious about this character, well, go ahead and talk to him instead of attack, and maybe you'll get some information from him. Oh, he didn't have information? Well, guess what? You're dead. And oh, you didn't save for the last hour? Good luck. All right, cool. Well, now you lost an arm. Are you going to reload, or are you going to go forward without the arm? Are you going to push as far in as you can? How are you going to execute this? And what did you get for that? Oh, a single piece of information. Was it worth it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. If you love that stuff, it was. And so this game is something that has this high degree of care in its narrative execution and its narrative consistency, and then it allows you as a player to only engage with the stuff that you want to. And then gather it up, and maybe you don't get all the information, and you just have some vague ideas, but you can still engage at the level that you want to. If you don't enjoy that stuff, totally fine. Maybe the challenge gets you, and I think that is the massive appeal of Fear and Hunger for me. And maybe this is a personal thing, and maybe I'm gonna take a drink of coffee. Maybe this is why it's such a big deal to me in such a personal way. Is every one of these things I'm talking about is massively appealing to me. This is a thing for me. I am in love with this game. I'm in love with the difficulty. I'm in love with the fact that it gatekeeps itself so aggressively. I'm in love with the narrative design. I'm in love with the world design and consistency. I'm in love with the universe. The universe is cool as hell. The concept of ancient beings is such an attractive thing, and it only alludes to it if you want it to, right? But it is such a great. I'm going to be careful because I don't want to spoil things. It is such a rich. Just such a rich universe that's been created for this game. And so you have, and the crazy thing is I'm saying all of this, and I did this before my Fear and Hunger 2 playthrough, because I know Fear and Hunger, being made and delivered first, it's important to share thoughts early on that, and then I'll play Fear and Hunger 2, and I'll do another big rant, and it'll probably be an hour and a half long, probably. but it is even just within Fear and Hunger 1. It is everything I love in a game. Everything I love in a game is there. And it's so strange because it overrode this apprehension I had to engage with it based on the Steam store and the visual elements. And I've grown to really love the visual elements. I think that's the only thing that wasn't initially appealing to me, is kind of the loose JRPG chibi thing. But I've grown to love it. I've grown to really appreciate the contrast between that and individual pieces of art and the dark art style. Again, this has always been a thing that I've had emotions about, where I like Darkest Dungeon 2 over Darkest Dungeon 1, in particular because of the art style, and it's not this cute chibi thing, and so, but again, if something's good enough, it overrides that for me, and so I've stepped into Fear and Hunger, and I've loved Fear and Hunger, and I want anybody who has any sort of resistance to it, if it's not a kind of a resistance of the sensitive soul, I would encourage people to play Fear and Hunger. This game is absolutely incredible. Is there anything else I want to say about it? There is. I mean, there's so much. The challenge is dancing around spoilers, because my goal, again, is not to spoil this for people who have not played it. And I think that's the danger with videos on the subject, on the game, is as I played through Fear and Hunger, my YouTube feed became aggressive in wanting to tell me things about the game, and I'm like, no, I want the game to tell me the stuff. I want the game to tell me, and the game did, and it was so satisfying, and I think maybe the last thing that I would say, and people might push back against this, but I don't care because I'm right, is as I was getting ready to play Fear and Hunger, I had a friend who was like, hey, you could just skip to the second one. It has everything better in it. It's the same game, but so I have just started it on stream, and I agree. I know some people are really going to enjoy the first game more, but I agree that the second one is executing things better. Nearly everything that I've seen so far executes better in Fear and Hunger 2. Do not skip Fear and Hunger 1. Don't. At all. Do not skip Fear and Hunger 1. Don't go to Fear and Hunger 2 until you have invested in Fear and Hunger 1. It's the foundation for enjoying the dark world and narrative that is in Fear and Hunger 2. Them being in a connected world, taking place, many hundreds of years later. I would encourage anybody to not skip it. It was worth it. It was worth it to the point, for those who don't know, that are not part of our community. Fear and Hunger 1 is technically banned on Twitch, which is where I had my primary community that I've been part of for a long time. I've been streaming on the platform for 6 years, maybe longer at this point, and I could not stream on Twitch, and that is of great value to me. That's where my guys are. And so to stream it, because I didn't want to share, I wanted to share the experience. The experience has been so amazing for me, right? Absolutely incredible for me, that I am very glad I did what I did. And what we ended up doing was we streamed it on YouTube, and I would stream something else, and I'd bring everybody over from Twitch, as many as I could, and it was encouraging, obviously, to see so many people come over and want to enjoy this game. But there is a sacrifice in doing that when you have one community somewhere, because it's really hard to get people to move. And because I could stream it on YouTube, and I know that there's mods and stuff that take away the wieners, but it doesn't change the rating of the game, so you still can't do that. Somebody could easily report me, and that's such a huge part of my life income that I didn't want to risk damaging my channel on Twitch. And so we did it on YouTube anyway, and I am so glad for it, because it was tempting, obviously. It was very tempting to be like, oh, I'll just stream the second one because I can't stream the first. And it's like, no. I think that this is going to have narrative and value and impact my understanding of the game. And it did, and I am so glad I did it. I don't have another... Actually, I do have a perfect example. When I was young... I read, I don't even know which book it was, but I read one book from the Gunslinger series. Just a single book. It was, for those of you familiar with the series, which I'm obviously not, it took place partially on a beach, and the gunslinger was able to, I believe, travel through somebody's dreams or something, and he was trying to get aspirin the entire time because he'd been wounded by, I think, some sort of sea creature. And so... that meant nothing to me. And I read it and I thought it was cool and I had fun, but I had no context for anything. And that series is like a beloved series. And I hopped in right in the middle for like I was in elementary school. It was probably too intense of a book for me anyway, but for a report, oddly enough, I jumped right into the middle of it. And that was such a huge mistake if I wanted to understand it. And this is the same thing. If you go to Fear and Hunger 2, you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be great. It's really cool. If you prefer kind of that London-esque aesthetic like Bloodborne versus Dark Souls, you're going to love it. But Fear and Hunger 1 is so powerful in the way it sets up the foundation for Fear and Hunger 2 that as I'm starting Fear and Hunger 2, I'm seeing glimpses of the things that I've invested a bunch of time into. And the crazy thing is I am not done with Fear and Hunger 1 at all. I know that. I know that there's harder difficulties that have gated certain bosses and endings from me. I got the major endings. I got the major endings, but not the S tier endings. And I still haven't looked stuff up because I don't want to know, because I want the game to explain it to me. And it's that great of a game that I just give it my absolute best recommendation ever. I thought I was going to talk about this for like 7-8 minutes, and it has been 36 minutes. I can still talk about this. I have stuff to do, and I don't want to stop talking about how great this game is. If you have made it this far in the video, it is this game has just been a joy. If you only caught a little bit of it, and it's so weird to call it a joy because it is so aggressively vulgar. But again, those systems, those visuals, those elements, they're all in place to make a player feel something emotional and to make it so that I am manipulated as a player. This is one of the things that I always love about storytelling. I hate Walter White. Why do I hate Walter White? Well, because he's a bad guy. There's nobody in that show that's actually good, right? There's nobody in that show that's good. But you have moments where you find yourself liking them, you find yourself enjoying it, and then it reminds you that you hate them. And you're constantly on this back and forth of time investment, creating attachment, and then feeling bad. And when an author can make you feel certain things that are negative, that you don't choose to naturally feel all the time, that is powerful writing. And Fear and Hunger does that in every regard, not just in difficulty. It'll make you feel bad with its difficulty level. It will make you feel so bad. I prepped for a final ending for hours, or for like an hour. I prepped for a final ending. I got all these items, and I went to this final ending, and I got one shot. And I lost an hour, and even at the very end of the game, it was still giving me bad feelings. And that's powerful. Because I'm being controlled. I am being made to feel something. But it does that not just in its difficulty, but in its subject matter. You run into a particular character who is particularly bad and does things that you would never even give home in your mind to, right? And you hate him. But you're also kind of glad he's there because he's interesting. And he's making you feel uncomfortable. And you are playing a game, and so these emotionally impactful moments are really, really big to me because they make me feel something, and to be led to feelings I don't want. I'm just amazed that an author can do that because we don't choose to do that, and so Fear and Hunger executes that really, really well. So out of everything that I could say with Fear and Hunger is if you're a fan of it, I am so glad to be part of a community who enjoys such a cool thing and survived and got through it. Whether you looked stuff up and you embraced the story from other people and then got into it and you still enjoyed it, which is valid, or if you went in completely blind and refused to look anything up and figured stuff out on your own, and this community is so neat because there is this degree of survivorship in it. You made it to the other side, and that's cool. So I'm glad to be part of that because it does feel like an exclusive club a little bit. But I'm also just glad to be part of a group of enjoyers of a game that knows how to navigate certain subjects, because I'll say that the people who have come in to our live stream have been people who are not immature. They're not people who are like, haha, wieners, like, sure, we make jokes, but like it's people who are like, oh no, there's some serious stuff here and it's amazing. And so Fear and Hunger, I love it, and I would encourage you, if you are somebody who loves it, if the beginning of this video in particular is helpful in getting somebody else to love it, have them join us in our enjoyment of this game. What a great game. And if you are somebody who has not played it yet and has watched this video, again, I'm not going to put spoilers in. I value your experience a lot. I want you to have an amazing first playthrough of this game. I would encourage you to check it out. It's cheap as hell. It is an affordable game. So grab it on Steam, play it, and have a great time, just like I did. I love Fear and Hunger.